Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Jonathan Project Podcast, where iron is sharpening iron. And we take the inspiration for this show from David and his good friend Jonathan. If you want Jason and me to come out and speak to you at a men's event, if you have something going on at your business, please reach out to us at the Jonathan Project Podcast at gmail.com. Again, the Jonathan Project Podcast at gmail.com. We also have this wonderful thing called a devotional. And the best thing about it, it is absolutely free. It will be in all the episode summaries. There will be a link to get that absolutely free. Getting a devotional can't get any better than that. You will find this episode and every episode comes out Tuesday mornings at your favorite podcast platforms. That could be Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, you name it. You can find us there, 6 a.m. Eastern on Tuesdays. Jason, welcome to yet another show.
Hey, how's it going? And good morning to our listeners.
Yeah.
Good morning to Tyler and Carm as they listen to us every Tuesday.
That's right.
Yeah, he shot me a text and he said we are now officially referred to as the guys or the boys or something like that as they go through their thing. So it's really kind.
That is awesome.
Love that. So how's it going, man? How are you?
It's good. By the time everyone hears this lovely message, it'll be after the Memorial Day weekend. Just encourage everyone. I know a lot of our listeners served, but it's a time to kind of reflect on those that gave that ultimate sacrifice and for their families that also gave up a lot. So it's a somber time. It's also a happy time here on the Phillips camp because it's my son's birthday. His birthday always falls on Memorial Day weekend at some point. And we got to spend it in lovely Orlando, which is always fun for parents in some special kind of ways. It's really fun for kids in all kinds of ways. So,
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. That's what I'll tell you. I've been to that magical kingdom. We went one time, my son, my wife is pregnant with our son, and my daughter was there. It was super hot. I'll never forget this time. And somebody asked me, goes, "What's that like?" And I said, "I'll tell you exactly what it's like. It's like being in selection all over again. It's super hot. I've got somebody constantly judging me, and I'm pushing a cart of kids that weighs a lot, and I'm carrying a backpack full of stuff that's not mine. I don't need."
And that whole team wants to tap out.
Yeah. And the whole team's like, "I'm done. Push a little harder."
You have to carry the load and get us across.
So
that was obviously, they will give the summary of how that went on the next episode. But we're going to talk about something I think is awesome. Why don't you tee it up? Because you brought this one forward, and I think it really is this amazing thing that we really kind of blow past sometimes. But go ahead.
So, we were doing a Bible study the other day, and it really nicely dovetails into how we talked last week about loneliness, right? What's it like when people are lonely? And we talked about steps to take. And immediately I'm doing a Bible study, and it's in John chapter 4, and it's about the woman in the well. And we talk about Jesus seeks us out. And that's what, you and I talked about when we started this story. Jesus seeks us, and he seeks to have that relationship with us. And it's a beautiful story when you look at it. So, we were reading, and I'll just go ahead and tee it off and you can jump in there. But the chapter prior, Jesus absolutely wants a relationship with you, right? You look at Nicodemus was in chapter 3, and he goes, hey, he met him. This is a ruler. This is a guy with a lot of prestige, and people wanted to be around him. And he comes to Jesus by night. He's like, come have dinner with me. And he approaches him at night. And Jesus sits down and talks to him, right? He sits down and addresses things with him. In the next chapter, and I love this part right here, Colby, it says, I had to flip. I got my old Bible right here. Lots of writing in it. Here he says, in chapter 4, verse 4, he said, and he must needs go through Samaria. So here's the thing. We talk about being lonely, and we talked about that last time. The Jews hated the Samaritans.
Oh, bloody, did they?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's almost an understatement to say that. Like there's so much to this, but yeah, keep going. I mean, like I'm
No.
excited for this one because there's so much depth to this story.
Tell about why they hated the Samaritans.
I mean, again, it's one of the best examples, to be honest. Besides just some of the things we're going to get in, we could probably spend 2 episodes on just this thing, the Samaritan woman and Jesus, because Samaritans and Jews, it was about the equivalent of, and well, I don't want to use the historic example of Nazi Germany and the Jews, but there was some deep hatred. Let me put it to you like that, where you have the
Yeah.
example where the the man was hurt, the Samaritan man on the road, and they were letting this man, other Jewish people were letting him kind of just ride on the side of the road. That's the level of animosity. But go ahead, Jason.
Yeah. Well, it has to go all the way back to when the Assyrians came, right? And the
Mhm,
Assyrians took the 10 northern tribes. And for people that don't know, the Assyrians were extremely brutal. So they run fish hooks up through their mouth. Yeah, and drug them out of there.
mm,
And so the Samaritans were the ones that were kind of left, and they kind of fell in with that. So you had cultural this different society that
mhm,
kind of emerged, right? And they were so bad hated that they wouldn't let them come into Jerusalem to worship. And we're going to get into, how that affects things later. But it was so bad when a Jewish person wanted to go to Galilee, which was kind of a less densely populated area, they would literally, instead of just going straight through north, they would go east, cross the Jordan, continue north through Perea and up into Decapolis, and then they would cross the Jordan again and go west to get up into Galilee.
yeah,
They wouldn't even go straight.
yeah,
They're like, "Nope, don't even wanna go through there."
yeah,
But Jesus says he must needs go there, and I thought that was extremely important because he sought her out,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. I mean, it's such a powerful thing. A lot of us wander through life, to be quite
Mhm.
honest. Sometimes it's episodic, sometimes it's just a season of life, but we're wandering through life. We're looking and searching for something, right? And there's so much here that this woman was looking for, to be quite honest.
Yeah,
I know we're gonna get into it, and I don't wanna steal the thunder, but
that's
it's just the power of when she was going, the timing,
yes.
the cultural significance of seeing a Israeli man at this well, right? She's a lone woman and still approaches the well, so there's a lot to that, and Jesus kinda unpacks that, like, why she has a comfortability with this strange man, if you think about it. But the point of it is that I'm saying is that her story, in a lot of ways, is ours, and ours meaning that we often are searching for something. We are oftentimes in our own mind, whether we believe it or not, we have made idols in different things. And so, therefore, we're an outcast as we're searching for and longing for that relationship with Jesus Christ. And it's
Mhm.
oftentimes that he finds us, whether we believe it or not,
Yeah.
right? It's the person that came into your path. It might have been someone praying for you. Or if you were fortunate to grow up in a Christian home, right? He met us as we grew up in that environment. The bottom line is with this woman, we can see no matter where you're at, Jesus is always willing to come find you. So yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, so the quick story of this for the people who are driving on the road and they can't turn to their Bible is so he comes to the city of Samaria, and which is called Sychar, right? And it's near the parcel of ground where Jacob gave his son Joseph a well, and that's where it is, right? It's like 100 feet deep or something.
Mhm.
It's super deep, and it's about the 6th hour, so that's about noon.
Yep.
And as you and I both know, Colby, in the Middle East at noon,
Oh,
it's hot.
it's an emotional event.
It's an emotional event. Side note for everyone who's listening, I was in Iraq in July. My air conditioner went out in my little metal building, and I'm like, whatever, I'll suffer through this. My granddad fought in World War II. My dad's in Vietnam. I'm not going to be punked out by lack of air conditioner. When it's 130 outside, that metal box is cooking. And
Yeah.
man, I had to
Oh,
have an air conditioner. That's what I'll say.
mm,
But, so he's there, right? And he sees the woman, the Samaritan woman, and he says, "Give me to drink." And because his disciples had went to go get buy meat, right? And she looks at him and she's all confused, just like it says. She says, "How is it thou be a Jew asked to drink of me, which is a woman of Samaria? For the Jews have no dealing with the Samaritans." Man, I love this. Jesus says to her, "You know, if you knew the gift of God and who it is that saith to thee, 'Give me to drink,' you would have asked of him that he would give thee living water."
Mm.
And she looks at him and says, "Sir, you ain't got nothing to drink. You ain't got nothing to pull water out with, draw water from the well. And it's deep." And, you know,
Yeah,
and
I love it.
where do you get this living water? I'm kind of summarizing King James, Jason, for speed. And he says, and she asked him, "Art thou greater than Jacob, which gave us the well and drank thereof himself and his children?" Jesus says, "Whoever drinketh this water shall thirst again, but whosoever drinketh the water that I'll give him shall never thirst. But the water that I shall give him shall be in him a well of water springing up into everlasting life." And she says, "Give me that water, that I thirst not, neither come hither to draw." And he says, and then he gets into calling her husband.
Yeah,
Let's talk about up to this point, if you would,
yeah, yeah.
and
I,
unpack it.
it's amazing. It's it's absolutely amazing, and it's a whole sermon in itself. Is that you have this woman, right, not realizing that she's talking to have a one-on-one with Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
That in itself is absolutely amazing. There's no coincidence that he sent off the 12 merry men who he knew were gonna just be like, "Yeah, what are we doing here? I don't want to be here. I don't like these
Yeah.
people." Blah 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 blah. Us, right? What we would be do? Go get some chicken, come back,
Yeah,
right?
he sends them into town too, by the way, so they're
Yeah,
not hiding.
no, no. So that happens, right? But then really what that tells us is Jesus will find a way to make things comfortable for you to have this ultimate conversation. That is
Yeah.
takeaway number one of why the disciples are not there. It's an intimate kind of setting with just Jesus. He knew that she came to the well at this time, perfectly. He knows where to meet us, right? But as men, there are times and things that we are thirsty for, right? There are different things. Maybe it's respect, maybe it's significance.
Yeah.
For this woman, when you listen to the story like Jason just laid out, she's just thinking physical needs. And how often do we do that? We're like, "Oh Lord, if you just give me a better job, if you just make
Yeah.
this relationship better, if you just, give me some rain," whatever it is. And Jesus goes deeper. He says, "Whoever drinks this water, I will give them, they will never thirst." And again, she's still kind of like, "Oh, this is great. I don't have to come to the well. I can just stay
Yeah.
at home, just hang out."
I can stay at home. I'm embarrassed. I have to be here at 6 o'clock at noon because
Right.
nobody else
Wants
will
to hang
come
out.
hang out with me. I
Right.
can't go in the evening.
But that's the point, is that Jesus is not offering a temporary fix. He's offering a permanent solution to all of us. That is the
Yeah.
most amazing thing about this first part that Jason laid out. Where your soul is thirsting, that deep hole that's in us. We talked about this last week with loneliness. There's a hole, and we put so much crap trying to fill it. Jesus comes along and he says, "Hey, you'll never thirst again. I'm going to fill you up." Go ahead, man.
Yeah. Well, you hit a nail on the head, and you bring out a super important point. A lot of times when we go and we witness to somebody, we start talking to them about their sin. And I kind of believe that a lot of times what people are doing and kind of what they're into, that's kind of where their heart is. And Jesus addresses her where her heart is. She's at the middle of the day. Now, historically and culturally, the women would go at the evening and draw the water when it's cool. But she, based on what you'll see in the future, she's not allowed to go with the other women. She's there at the heat of the day when no one else is going. That's how bad of an outcast she is. So she's outcast by the Jews as a Samaritan, and she's outcast as being a woman because they had that strict cultural, we're not talking.
Yeah.
Men and women didn't talk in public.
No.
She have that one, and then inside of that, she's an outcast of that. She's the outcast 3 times over, and she is thinking physical. We think physical. We do. If I could have a new house, well, then your house won't match your car. You need a new car.
On you go.
Then it's like, oh, well, I got a car, but I don't have a CD player. I don't even think they have those anymore. Uh,
You dated yourself. You dated yourself.
I
But no,
did, I did. Well, I had a cassette player, when and I thought that was an upgrade. My old truck doesn't radio work sometimes, but you're always looking for the next thing. When in you said it, what you're really looking for is that relationship with Jesus, and he's always reaching out.
Yep.
He comes at
Yeah.
the worst time, right?
Oh man, the heat
And
of the day.
yeah. And he says, and she's like, you ain't got nothing to draw the water out with. And she does that. And even when she returns back to the physical element, a lot of times don't look at Jesus like a Santa Claus
Mm-mm.
because you're thinking about, I need the Red Ryder BB gun. You'll really shoot your eye out. It's what's that relationship? That is the satisfying water.
Yes.
You know, I
Yeah.
gotta throw this out. He sends the disciples off to eat, to get meat. Jesus he was hungry. He was hungry here, right?
Hmm.
He doesn't do a miracle for himself in the Bible, which was one of the things Satan tried to tempt him with, right?
Sure.
He
Yeah.
doesn't do it. He sends them off to get food, but he's always doing miracles for someone else,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And I think that's it. As Christians, as we bring people to Christ, talk to them where their heart is, and then you look at it and it's like, okay, I'm gonna talk to you where you are. Hey, you got this neat talent. I bet we could use this at the church.
Sure.
And let me introduce you to Jesus. Keep circling it back to Him. I love that. All right,
No.
so
No. Yeah. I
go
was
ahead.
just gonna say, like, as far as that little part goes, is that Jesus met her exactly where she was at. He knew it was no question. It wasn't, confusion that she was going to be at the well at that time when nobody was around. And that's a comfort and a hope for us that Jesus is going to be waiting for you. Hebrews 13:5 says he'll never leave you nor forsake you. He'll find you at your proverbial well when no one else will, right? That is the heart of Jesus, right? Like you were saying, Jason, he wasn't going to do a miracle just for himself. He was there, and it doesn't matter, as we talked about last week, if you're feeling lonely or whatever you're going through, or you feel isolated. That's not what Jesus wants. He wants to bring you into the fold, right? Where he will leave the 99. He left the 12 disciples, right? Went into an isolated land where nobody wanted to bring the light. And he came to find that one person who went on to do something great, which we're going to get to here, moving through the story. Yeah. Go ahead.
And, and she says this, and she's like, "Give it to me, and I don't have to come here to draw." Right?
Mm,
And here's the thing: Jesus says this next to her. He says, "Go call thy husband and come hither." That's in the King James, right? I don't.
mm. Yeah.
And he says, the woman answered and said, "I got no husband." And Jesus says unto her, "You're a liar." No, I'm kidding. He doesn't call her that.
Yeah.
He says, "Well, thou hast well said, I have no husband." You know, there's got to be a conviction, and it really is. But Jesus is very gentle about it right here.
Yeah.
He goes, you kind of told the truth there. You've had 5 husbands, and whom the guy you live with right now is not thy husband. And so you did say that truly. And I love this because she goes, "I perceive that you're a prophet." He went from being a teacher to a prophet. And and he says, she skips and she asks about a philosophical question, right? She starts asking about the Father's worshiping in the mountain. And you say that Jerusalem is the place where people ought to worship. And it's interesting because people want to get in debates, especially lonely people that are hurting and they're out there. They want to get in debates, right? Well, I don't believe the fish in Jonah,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
I don't believe that, whatever. It was something I was reading in chapter 5 last night, and my wife and I the pool of Bethesda, where it
Mm,
says the angel touched it
mhm.
and people got healed, and some people are like, nah, it's really some sulfur springs. No, Bible says an angel went down. So that's what I'm sticking with.
Yeah.
Hey, so it says here, she gets into this, and he says, "Woman, believe me, the hour will come that you shall neither in this mountain nor in Jerusalem worship the Father." Right? And you worship, you know not what, and we know what we worship, for salvation is of the Jews. But the hour cometh, and the now is, when the true worshiper shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth, for the Father asketh or seeketh such to worship him. And God is the Spirit, and they that worship must worship in spirit and in truth. And the woman said unto him, I know that the Messiah will come, which is called Christ, and when he's come, he'll tell us all things. And Jesus spake and said, I am. Now mine says, I am he, but the he is off. And he basically says that I am Christ. It's such an interesting thing there, how Jesus just circles it back. He doesn't get caught up in that debate. He seeks her out for what's in her heart.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. Yeah, like like from a men perspective, right? Like we kind of like this woman, we can carry a lot of baggage, right?
Yeah.
It could be some hidden addictions. It could be something shameful in your past or whatever, abandonment, whatever it is, right? Failure as a husband, father, whatever it
Mhm.
is. Like as he calls out the woman, like, hey, you've had these multiple husbands, you're living with a sixth, right? And none of them really were your husband, kind of a deal, which in that culture is a really big deal.
It's a big
But
deal today too. If
yeah,
you got 6 spouses, come to Jesus, right?
yeah, and he called her out not to condemn him, right? Not to condemn her, not to condemn us, is that he was trying to invite her in and to show her who he was, in which, as you kind of reveal, he says, basically in Romans 3 and 23, we've all sinned, right? We've all kind of fell
Yeah.
short of that glory and that mark, but he came to reconcile.
Mhm.
Right, and that's the beautiful thing about this element of the story where they're having this conversation where her shame is laid bare, right? Very publicly, like not only just physically because she's there, but internally she goes through and confesses basically, truthfully, like, hey, I can't do it. And there's something about being near Christ that the truth will come out because he is the truth. But he reconciles her. Like we see him do so many times what he did with Peter, he's done with so many people. The woman caught in adultery, he reconciles us. And that is a hopeful thing that everyone should take away from this part of the story, and for the story of the Samaritan and Jesus' encounter
Mhm.
is that he will reconcile you. He's not there to condemn you. The world always says that God is angry and he's trying to judge us, but really when you look at this, it's a beautiful, impactful story because he heals right there on the spot. He reconciles her. He's like, hey, I get it. Here's the truth. He gives her truth, but he also gives her grace and mercy. And he leads her on the path. Sorry, really, this is the path towards a new identity, which is, the next part of the story, so to speak.
When and I wanna go back because I didn't get to clarify that statement. She had 6, right?
Mhm,
6. That's loneliness, and that deeply is, and if you got that today, it's deeply a sign of loneliness
mhm,
or outside of circumstances, right? But that could be a very big sign and symptom of, man, there is a void I'm trying to fill. And just like, people that have an addiction to new shoes or new clothing, or hey, I've got to have this, I got to have this, I'm keep trying to fill that void. Some people fill it with relationships, right?
mhm,
And it had kind of painted her into a corner where, again, in the Middle East, if you're going out at noon to carry a jar of water, you got to walk all that way and come back and get it. That's hard.
yeah, yeah,
Nobody wants to be out. And he does. He speaks right to it. He gives her that conviction. And he tells her, because so the different mountains, they wouldn't let them go there, and they wouldn't let the Samaritans come to Jerusalem. So what they did was they changed it. They changed the entire story, where it was like the Garden of Eden's on this Mount Gerizim, or I think's what it was called. But the Garden of Eden was there. The ark landed there. Yeah, all of it was. The 10 Commandments came from there. And that was this whole thing, right? And Jesus is like, no, we're going to talk about worshiping in spirit. And that's where it's going to be, right?
yeah. No, you're right. So he transitioned her into this new identity, right? Like the past, we've laid it bare. Then they move into this new identity, right? Like anyone is in Christ, 2 Corinthians 5:17, you are a new creation. And she was, for us as guys, right? Our past failures and stuff, Satan likes to recall those, but Jesus doesn't. He says, you have a new purpose and you have to move out. You have to be a kingdom man. And for
Yeah.
this woman, it was the same thing. She's focused again on the physical. Hey, we always worship here. This is what we do. And Jesus is like, no, I am who you come to worship. I am that. And
Hmm.
true worshipers worship me and my Father in spirit and truth, John 4 and 23. It wasn't about the location. It's not about your sin. It's not about that. It's about the posture of your heart, and he was trying to get her to see that. And you can worship real men, us, people, women, children, whoever. You can worship in your garage, your car, or wherever. in your brokenness, it's your heart, right? And he's trying to get her to see that, right? And it's this powerful breakthrough that, in the coming verses kind of plays out as Jesus continues this path of reconciliation, right? He came to resurrect her life, to build her life, and he's getting her to see, and who he really is, and it hits her here in a moment, as I'm sure you're covering through, but yeah.
No, it does hit her. It hits her absolutely because the disciples come walking up, right? And they want to know, what's he doing talking to her? They're human too. Hey, the
Mhm.
disciples, the people who walked as close with Jesus as anybody. You know what I mean? Like, let's think about that. They walked so close with him. It wasn't my hand he reached out and took when I was sinking in the water. I've swam a whole bunch. I've never stepped on top of that water and it been like, oh, here you are.
Yeah.
I'm a good swimmer. It those were the closest people,
Yeah.
you know? And
Yeah.
and and by the way, this is John that writes this, the son of thunder, who later was, you know, the disciple of love.
Yeah. Yeah.
When we talk about Jesus changing people, it's great that he does this. But I also love the fact that Jesus is talking about something brand new with
Yeah.
her, the outcast.
Yeah.
We're gonna worship the spirit.
No,
Where we're
I
headed.
I love it. Again, like I said, we could probably talk about this for another 30 plus minutes, but it's amazing. It was powerful. As you said, the disciples do come back, but the woman came in quiet and shame, clothed in it, dripped in it.
Oh, yeah.
I can imagine her walking up in the heat of this day, covered her head, like trying to, find some coolness as you're carrying this jug, shamed, right?
Yeah.
But watch how she goes. She went out shouting. She
Yeah.
became the evangelicus for that whole city.
Yeah.
Sometimes God can strip away what we think are our supporters, what we thought were friends, what we thought was our support network, our resources, so he can develop us in that silence where only we can have him, right? 46, Psalms 46 and 10, scripture I have here in my home. Be still and know that I'm God. You know, it's amazing when we, look at some of these moments, right? And this is such a powerful thing. I encourage everyone to go back and really dig in and study this, the scripture and this scene, because there's so much that's going on. But it's often when we're in that solitude, when you finally slow down, that you can hear his voice and you spend that time with him, you know, amazing things happen. Your life changes forever. You hear that answer that you've been looking for. So,
You know, as you kind of continue on this story, he had sent his disciples to get something to eat. Jesus was hungry. He was, right? And they come back and they're like, eat. And he says, my meat is to do the will of him that sent me and to finish his work. And he he put the work, he put all of that above eating, right? And then he talks to him about what comes next. And I think it's extremely relevant. I really do. I think it's incredibly relevant because he says, he talks about harvest. And I love how Jesus uses harvesting, planting, things like that, because that's lasted throughout time.
mhm,
If you take a farmer from the 1700s and you take a farmer from today, they can relate,
mhm,
right? Now, I
mhm,
can't even relate to my children over an iPhone.
mhm,
Like, I have no idea how it
mhm,
works. And if you'd have seen us earlier, we had trouble with the electronics, right?
mhm.
But he says the field is white with harvest because people were coming out, and that's interesting because that's really these people. They were the outcast. They were the segregated, right? People nobody wanted to have anything to do with.
Mhm.
And Jesus goes, "Go get those guys. Let's go talk to them."
Yeah.
You know, I, I think it's a beautiful story,
Yeah, it's awesome.
and I think if people are lonely, I think we all are lonely to a degree, but I think that great relationship with Jesus Christ is the void. It fills the void,
Yeah.
right?
No, absolutely. And I think what we see with the Samaritan woman, which is why I say her story is our story, is that it doesn't matter what Satan tries to say your past is, your shame, it doesn't disqualify you from the purpose that God has for you, because that woman's life was completely transformed. And the reason I know that is because not only did he help her, but Jesus spent a couple days there.
Yeah.
And there are probably countless stories of how he changed that whole region, because you can't have an encounter with Jesus and walk away the same. We see that time and time again in the Bible. So, you have a mission, and we talk about that a lot here. But as men in particular, you have a mission to go forth and carry forth, and you're not disqualified until you just reject him,
Yeah.
because his hand is out. He's waiting at the well. He's waiting for you. So that's an amazing story. I'm glad we brought it forward to today. So
No, because you're right. You've got all the way up to the moment, right?
yeah,
The old boy, the thief on the cross. And it's interesting. He said, "You'll be with me today in paradise." And, usually people hung on that cross for a couple of days, but they broke their legs.
well, yeah,
Jesus told him, says, you come with me today. You're going to
yeah,
not, you're dying today.
yeah. Coattail smoking, but you're getting in.
Yeah. he got the golden ticket. Yep.
Man, did he? May we all follow in his steps, I pray.
Yeah.
Well, folks, that is yet another episode of the Jonathan Project Podcast. We are glad we overcame all kinds of technical challenges to bring that to you. And it will come out, as it always does, every week at 6 a.m. Eastern, or wherever you're at on the planet when 6 a.m. Eastern happens. You can find it at iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Apple, Spotify. You can find us pretty much everywhere. That is the Jonathan Project Podcast. You also can find something that you can't find anywhere else, something free. That's right. No gimmicks, no ads, no nothing. Straight, great kingdom stuff for free. It's a devotional. It's 28 days, 2 minutes a day, and it will help you with some of the greatest titles you carry as a husband, father, or if you know a husband and a father out there, please get them this free resource. All the links will be in the summaries here. And yeah, thank you. If you want us to come out and speak to you, we would love to do that. If you want prayer, think about episodes you want us to cover, please reach out to us at the Jonathan Project Podcast at gmail.com. Again, the Jonathan Project Podcast at gmail.com. Jason, thanks for your flexibility. And we worked through the technical challenges to bring yet another thing for the kingdom to everybody. So thanks for your time.
Sounds good, brother. See ya.
All right. Bye.